Capuchin TV.
Tumetoka mbali, bado tuko mbali na tunaenda wapi? Mbali.
Endelea kutazama Capuchin TV, huduma Katoliki ya uinjilishaji.
Members in this day's meetings. I'm going to illustrate this aspect again so that there can be no longer any misunderstandings. As already said here a month ago, the members of the Synod are 364 and the Pope. So 365. Just as the days of the year, as on 21st September, was said by Luis Marín de San Martin, the Undersecretary of the Synod. Only the members have voting rights. As we explained at the time, and as you know, in addition to the members, there are also non-voting members, and they are experts, theologians, facilitators, canonists, fraternal delegates, some special invitees, and the staff of the Secretariat of the Synod. In total, there are 464 members, but these additional numbers, of course, have no vote, and their presence is not accounted for every day, because what we count is only the members who have a voting right. There is another thing I would like to add concerning the theme the topic of taking the floor or intervening during the general congregations and asking for the floor. In our meetings, the Secretariat of the Synod gives precedence to all those who have not yet intervened during the previous general congregations. And as to the vote, as we were told this morning as well, the vote is anonymous, and as it always was. But let us now come to the general congregations of yesterday afternoon and this morning. So the reports from the small groups and the free interventions were focused on the topic of authority in the Church. As you know, the title of section B3 is Participation, Governance and Authority. And so it was highlighted that we must avoid authoritarianism and that authority is not dominion, but is service. There is an important sentence that was said, those who exercise authority must do that barefooted. It was also the role of pastors at the service of the poor was highlighted, and the celebration of yesterday was mentioned, quoted by the Pope before the Migrants Monument, which you all could follow, and some of you also participated in it, and the focus on the cry of so many brothers and sisters who suffer on the streets. The bishops should call for the conversion of the heart so that humanity's feelings are aroused in those who traffic with weapons, causing wars and causing the sufferings of millions of people. A word that was often quoted is that of co-responsibility in the sense of the co-involvement, the coordination of all charisms, the enhancement of the different figures and competencies in the diocese. Those who exercise authority must not do everything and control everything, but on the contrary, they must have the ability to delegate. Another important thing that was said is that the bishop has the last word, but not the only word. So this highlights the importance of referring to the commitment of the laity, and also learn how to manage leadership in specific fields vis-à-vis the laity. I'm now going to give the floor to Sheila, who's going to illustrate other themes. Good evening again. I will be speaking in Portuguese. So we talked about the commitment and the issue of clericalism among the clergy and the laity. This has led to abuses of power, of conscience, economic abuses and sexual abuses. Abuses have been discussed because they cause the loss of credibility of the Church, and so control mechanism must be introduced in order to take this, to control this. And synodality can also play a part in preventing abuses, because a synodal process has to do with listening, dialogue. Other topics which emerged yesterday were revising financial structures and a greater transparency in the economic field, the review of canon law, and also of some titles that have become anachronistic. We also spoke about the need for reinforcing synodal structures, the existing ones such as the pastoral councils, diocesan and episcopal councils, and paying attention to possible parliamentarian drifts. Another point I would like to share with you today is that what was highlighted also was the importance of the digital world, because we live in a digital world. So we spoke about the digital world as a place of mission and a territory to approach those who today are far removed or are in the periphery, starting from the families. And some shared that it is not necessary for people we must visit people where they are, particularly young people. Young people can be found more on the social networks, on the internet, and I don't know, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook. So there are many social networks where we can meet youths. So this aspect was also highlighted, and the need to visit this digital space. Thank you, Sheila. And now we are going, and thank you, Mr. Ruffini, for summarizing what was done today. I would like now to give the floor to His Excellency Grusas for his witness.
As was said in the introduction, I'm the president of the Council of European Bishops' Conferences, and as such, that was the first major role outside of the country that we encountered in the synodal path that we were on. We organized the continental meeting in Prague in February, which was a 5-day meeting. It was the first really big shared experience that we had on a continental level of bishops and lay people and religious coming together and sharing, working together in this spiritual conversation mode. Everybody left with a very positive experience and how that all came together and worked. After the first 4 days with everyone, the bishops, in this sense, not just the bishops, but the presidents of the bishops' conferences stayed on for a day and a half and reviewed, prayed about, talked about how that day had gone, how those days went, and our own interpretation of what had been decided or what had been brought up. That was a very positive experience, and with that, many of us from Europe came here. Europe is made up, the Council of European Bishops' Conferences represents 45 countries. So we had a great variety of people, perspectives already in that sharing debate. What the difference I'm finding here is just the numbers are bigger, the continents, the countries, the cultures, and so it's that type of sharing on a much larger scale. But it, again, as you've obviously seen, is not trying to get to a final document as much as working through the process. I think one of the themes that keeps coming up is formation. And formation for bishops, formation for clergy, seminarians, formation for the laity. And often it comes back to formation as a way of being church, a way of living together and finding that being church and communion. So that has become a recurring theme. Not only is the number of people and countries and cultures represented, but also the length of our time together. If we were there for 5 days and left tired, I think being here for a month with a much more, I'd say, Roman pace of life. Most of the people that are coming in from Anglo-Saxon countries, America, Ireland, are not used to the big break in the middle of the day and working till 7 p.m. every day. So it is a challenge, it is tiring, but it is also energizing in one sense, because we are meeting very many people from around world. We understand that even though we're from very different parts of the world, continents, we do have a lot in common. First of all, our faith. And experiencing that has been a very growing experience, and I think we're going to have that the year between until the next Synodal Assembly here in Rome as going back and really experiencing it. The other thing from my perspective is that the Holy Father has really put an emphasis on the continental levels, whether it's FABC, CCEE, or South America, or Africa. And that sharing and looking at structures and how we can do that, I think is going to be important also in the life of the church. And finally, I think the process, we say formation, but I think under it, it's a matter of conversion. Conversion of heart, conversion of our own minds, be it bishops, priests, consecrated, laity, experts, whether theologians or canon lawyers. We all kind of run into our own mindset, and sharing helps us grow in that change of life, change of mindset. It's a very powerful process. I'm very thankful to be part of it, and I think it will keep us moving and growing as a church. I have to admit one thing, though. In my introduction, one thing wasn't mentioned. I do have a doctorate in canon law, so I'm one of the canon lawyers that needs to change the mindset.
Grazie Eccellenza, noi come ha detto anche lei abbiamo...
Thank you, Your Excellency. As we said here, we have also a champion of this diversity of charisms, and I would like to give the floor to Sister Hoda Fadur for her witness. So there are many of us here. First of all, thank you for inviting me. I would like, first of all, to say thanks to our Holy Father for this initiative, because for me, he is truly a man of prayer, and he understands the needs of the church, particularly for as far as our own church is concerned, because we spent a lot of time in the war, in the pandemic. There has been an earthquake, so our church is very tired because of all that has happened. So when his calling came, we were not ready for this message, to receive this message in an adequate way, because in our diocese we spent 3 years with other bishops. So when our bishop arrived, he started trying to recover the situation, and he invited an expert bishop from the Lebanon who took part in the first part of the synod to organize conferences in the different dioceses, and also young persons are being involved thanks to this solution. So we realized that we have to work to be with the others. And when I was invited to participate in this assembly in the Lebanon, I felt very grateful, because this allows me to share this experience with other churches, and their experience can also be shared. So this is a time of exchange, and it's very rich for everyone in the church. We are truly experiencing, as a Catholic and universal church, diversity and unity at the same time, because eventually, at the end of the day, we are all limbs of the same body of Jesus. So we all have our own difficulties, of course, but when you share your difficulties and when you pray, you feel better. You feel this burden in a different way. And this is the same goes for all the steps. Whenever we talk about a theme, it's very important. There is this journey. It means that there is a starting point, that there is a route to follow, and we hope that we can achieve a goal. We hope that this synod is going to be fruitful for the whole church and for the entire world. Thank you. Thank you, Sister, for your words. And now we give the floor to the Archbishop of Tokyo, His Excellency Kikuchi.
Thank you so much. You know that the Japanese, we don't talk much. We love silence. Silence, you know that the title of the movie and also the famous novel. So we prefer to keep quiet. So it's very difficult for the Japanese, not only Japanese, but many Asians to speak up. And that's why this small group discussion is very important. And in early this year, when we had the Continental Synod Assembly in Bangkok, we started to use that small discussion group, just like what we have right now in the Synod Hall, the small round table and 10 or 11 people gathering together, and everybody is given the chance to speak up the conversation in spirit. That is really working. It worked in Asia, and now it's working in here in this Synod Hall. I'm really appreciating, because already I had the opportunity to participate in 5 different small groups. That means I met so many people. Each group has 10 people there. And I could feel and I could experience the diversity in unity of the Catholic Church. At the same time, the Catholic Church is a universal existence. So whenever we come together here in Rome, we talk in the terms in universal terminology. But we have to remember that one size does not fit for all. So like Asia, we have so many different languages, and that means we have so many variety of the cultures, different realities. We cannot just put one way to work with all the people. So we really expect from Asia that the local cultures and local realities should be respected when we talk about synodality in the Catholic Church. Synodality doesn't mean the uniformity, but we have to work together as we are in our own cultures. And also let me add one more thing, that I'm not representing the Caritas Internationalis in this synod, but I happen to be the president. So I have to emphasize that Caritas is a very important tool for synodality in the Catholic Church. As you know, that there are 160 member organizations all over the world, and each member organizations are independent, but every organization has its Catholic identity and working with the partners, so it's a partnership, and also manifest the ecumenical nature and interreligious nature. And we have in Caritas, like my executives right now, I'm the president, but my vice president is the Australian lady, and treasurer is a Belgian lady, and also the secretary general is a British lady. So the Caritas has been, from the beginning, it's a very synodal organization involving everybody, but not only those who are in the executive position, but also to the local grassroots people. We go there, we meet the people. We are not just giving the aid or assistance, but we want to uplift the human dignity of each person in the difficulties, so that they can really control their own life. They have the feeling of the respected, the human dignities, so that they can really create the hope for the future from within their heart. So the Caritas will continue to be the strongest tool for the Catholic Church for the synodality. Thank you.
Grazie. Bene, risaltarlo.
Thank you. Thank you for highlighting these aspects, and thank you for reminding us that synodality is not the same as uniformity, and your country is an example because of its multiculturality. So let us now give the floor to our journalists.
No problem. Thank you.
It's completely out. Sorry. So please, Sister Baron, you have the floor.
Thank you, Christiana. Good afternoon to all of you. It's nice to see the faces of the names that we know from the articles we read. So we've been asked to share a little bit of our experience. And in English we have this saying that no two people read the same book. And meaning that we come to the experience with all of our life experience. And in reflecting on this, for me, I'm a religious sister, I'm a missionary. And I think both of those influence how I am experiencing this synod and the whole synodal process. In the introduction, Christiana mentioned that my experience as a sister was in rural parish in East Africa. And I would say that was my first introduction to a synodal church. You know, I'm from Ireland, where we were evangelized in the 5th century. And so we have the weight of structures of a long-lasting church in that country. To go to a church that was very new. The parish was established in 1950. And with 2 priests to serve a parish that was like the size of half of Ireland, and that's not a joke. So there was, in each village, there were 35 villages, there was an outstation with a catechist, and a very vibrant faith community. My role was accompanying the youth and accompanying the women's groups in the parish. And it was such a synodal process. You know, we listened to each other, the decisions were taken together, the outstation fed into the centre, which fed into the parish, which then fed into the diocese. But it was the involvement of the laity, and I think possibly one of the advantages in the younger churches is that many people come to the faith as adults and make that choice to be baptized as adults and are confirmed into a faith where they are challenged to be missionary disciples from the outset. So that, for me, that experience is something that I learned in my early life as a sister. And then I think the experience of sitting around the tables in the Paul VI Hall, for me, brings me back again to East Africa. The setting is extremely different. I imagine myself outside a mud hut where we met every Sunday for our basic Christian community meetings. You had a small gathering of people, maybe 10 families in the Christian community, and we sat around and shared our faith rooted in the gospel of that Sunday. But the key was that we had to decide how we wanted to live that faith as a community and take an action. And what was beautiful for me there was many of the people in that community were not educated. And we shared our faith from the depth of our hearts, and we came to a decision together. Every voice was the same around that basic Christian community. Regardless of position in the community, regardless of education, everybody shared their faith. And that is what I experience in the hall in Paul VI, and around the tables in Paul VI Hall. It doesn't matter who's at the table. It's our love of Christ that has called us into this life. It's our love of desiring a church that can live the mission that Christ left us. I think that is what inspires all of us sitting around the tables. And so for me, I think one of the key learnings is we need to listen more to the emerging churches, the younger churches, who still have that kind of grassroots participation in the life of the church. The second dimension of my life is as a religious sister. And I know it's been said repeatedly that religious life, by its nature, it's almost in our DNA that we're quite synodal in our structures. And I had an experience this July which confirmed that for me. You know, sometimes I thought, are we being a little bit, we think we're better than other parts of the church because we're more synodal. But in fact, we had our general chapter this year, and at the same time we were having our chapter, another group of sisters were having their chapter, and they were lucky enough to be accompanied by a bishop. They had a bishop as their chaplain. And for us, the bishop happened to be from Ireland, and he came to the few Irish in our groups and said, my goodness, we are talking about synodality, but we bishops, we're dipping our toes in the water, whereas you people are living it fully. because he was accompanying how we share around issues and how we actually decide, So that for me, I think I'm bringing that experience to living this synod. I think it's a great privilege for us, and it's something I say to our sisters when we come to chapter. It's a great privilege to be one of the few that are chosen to make this journey on behalf of all the others. And I think that I feel that privilege every time I'm in the room, not just because I'm one of the few women in the room, although we're quite a big number, but because it is a privilege to be any member in that room that can journey together with these questions. So I think we need to do more in terms of how we inform each other, religious life and hierarchical church, and how we can learn together to grow into this synodal church that we desire to be. So thank you.
Grazie, sorella. Grazie della sua testimonianza.
Thank you, sister, for your witness. You are also a missionary, and we also have the bishop from Tokyo and our Syrian sister Hoda. On 22nd is going to be the World Day of Missions, and for us it is a privilege to have you here today. So, sister, I apologize again for forgetting to give you the floor. So we can now pass on the floor to our journalists. Luis.
Luis Miguel Modino de Religión Digital.
Luis Miguel Modino. The question is for the two women religious belonging to a different tradition. Sister Baron said that religious life is a reality that brings synodality. We know that religious life is different. You are a superior and you are the president of the International Union of Superiors General. And it's a religious life that reaches the furthermost areas of the world, you as the other sisters. So which do you think are the concrete contributions to synodality on the part of religious life, and how religious life can help even more the Church for her to be truly synodal?
Who wants to begin? Sisters.
So, you want to start? You want to ask? You want? Okay.
For me, the contribution we can give is our witness, how we can live as consecrated persons in the world. So there is this connection between our spiritual life. So my contribution is the witness we can give of our life with the others. So the spiritual fruit that come from the Lord, to share them to all those around us, particularly at the difficult time that we are experiencing, for instance, in our country. Our daily life is very difficult. So when we realize that we can bring them our prayers and we can help these persons, we feel in solidarity with them. We decided not to leave the country precisely because we want to help this small Christian community, preventing them from being forced to leave. The Christian presence for us is very important. So if you can live your religiosity in an open and full way, this is what we can bring as an answer to your question.
I think I will speak more of maybe from the UISG perspective, as the Union of Superiors General. And we have like 1,900 members in all corners of the world. To date, we would encourage our membership to be involved in the synodal process and to encourage people to be involved. We also would have provided a lot of training. We speak a lot about formation, and we recognize the need for formation just to understand what do we mean to be a synodal church, and then how to live into that experience. And so with collaborating with the Synod office, a lot of work has been done also in preparing people to live synodality. I think a great advantage is the reach that we have. We do reach into so many countries. Even within my own congregation, we did a lot of formation on accompanying people in living synodally as a church. And sisters are then asked to come and help parishes. How do we do this? So I think it's a ripple effect of the reach that we have, the capacity we have also within UISG to offer formation online, which has really helped and broadened. It's built up our own communion among ourselves, which I think is part of synodality, is building up the community and empowering the community to go on mission. The reach we have, the communion we have among ourselves, and the capacity to collaborate with the different dicasteries, that we work together to help us all to grow into what it means to be synodal.
Grazie mille ai nostri ospiti per
Much to our guests for their answers.
Christopher Lamb from the Tablet. We know from the Synod working document that many local synods called for women's inclusion in the diaconate, and that's obviously been a topic that's been discussed at the Synod. There have also been a number of commissions on this topic and other studies. Do you think it is the time now for a decision to be taken on whether or not this proposal can move forward, or is further discernment at perhaps the local level still needed?
To who?
Well, yes, to you, sister, and anyone else who wants to.
I think, thank you for the question. Personally, I think it's not really about me. It's not really about my opinion. We are in a synodal process. We're in the Synod to discern together on all issues. And I'm sure you've heard from last week that this question is on the table. There are the beauty of the Catholic Church. We have both ends of the spectrum in terms of what we believe, but we're holding that in the tension that it does cause within the Church, to know how to journey forward together. And I think it would be unfair of me to speak outside of that space. We're holding that at the moment, and I think the document that comes out in the end may have more clarity. But it's not about my personal opinion, it's about what this Synod is saying. So thank you.
Io voglio condividere con voi la mia esperienza personale.
Personal experience.
In modo che per me l'importante
For me, the important thing is that each and every one of us uses their gifts in the Church. So I spent 10 years as a superior of my community in an Oriental environment in which there are priests, deacons, and my experience in this community is very beautiful because I understood how I can use my gift thanks to the grace of God, where I can stop, where I can go on with my confreres and sisters, deacons. And I think that in connection with every concept concerning women, we speak often about complementarity, not an equal footing. We can speak about anything as long as we use our gifts in the best possible way.
I think what is developing is a much wider discussion than trying to focus in on one thing, flip the switch, yes or no. And I think the discussion on the various ministries in the Church, possibly discovering new ministries in the Church, is part of the discussion. We very often try to get things down to black and white, yes or no, go or stop. But I think the discussion that's happening is one of how do we live church in a completely different way, or the same way in a better dialogue. So it doesn't necessarily mean change everything or keep everything the same, but to find the new process. So I think that's what's going on more than trying to say yes or no.
What I got to know through these 3 weeks of experience, what we know right now is that there are differences of opinions and also the differences of understanding the word or terminology. We use the same words, but understanding is highly depending on the cultural background. So we are saying the same thing, but we are talking about the same thing, but sometimes understanding is completely different. And after 3 weeks, you got to know that there are big differences, and it is too early to make any concrete decision at this moment.
Tu come laica vorresti aggiungere qualcosa?
Sure. Bom, para mim, esta experiência
Well, for me, this synodal experience
mas é algo que nós já praticávamos em África.
is
As comunidades cristãs.
something that is already practiced in Africa. In Africa, there are Christian communities, small Christian communities, and through these small groups, we were already adopting this synodality method. So for us, this is not something which is totally new, but it is a rather different experience. And also being part of different groups and being with people who come from different countries and have different views and opinions is an experience that we are learning, and it is very good to be here. Thank you.
Salve, Deborah Castellano-Lubov, Vatican News, English edition. Mi piacerebbe rivolgere la mia domanda a Monsignor Grusas e anche a Monsignor Capuchin, però in inglese. I would like to ask you how this synodal process, this first part over there being the next part next year, how it personally will leave an impact on you when you return home, this interim period before returning to the Vatican next year in Vilnius or Tokyo, and in your capacities for Europe or in CARITAS. And also, aside from the what will be most useful that you'll take with you, if there's something that you think could be more useful to you, is there something that you think could be done differently in a way that would be more pragmatic in your respective realities? Thank you.
I think one of the things that even the European Bishops' Conference presidents at that second meeting, we were reflecting on the fact that there are a lot of things in canon law that are already there that are synodal, and that we really just need to start implementing them ourselves. And I think that's going to be one of the challenges as we come back out of here. We don't have to wait for the Holy See to change canon law. There are a lot of instruments there that we can go and begin to use more actively. I think the challenge is going back into the same structure from which we came, with all the same daily grinds that we have, and to bring the experience that we've shared here and try to convey it to others. And I think that is, being here for a month and really living the spiritual conversations, having them and valuing them. It's going to be a challenge to try to bring that back to the whole country, and in my case, all of Europe. And that is a challenge. We all, as people, get into our habits and our ruts, and you have to very consciously say, we're going to do things differently now. With yourself, you can do it. When you try to bring a whole diocese or a whole nation or a whole continent with you, it takes a lot more work. So it's going to be a challenge, and nobody doubts that. But having had the experience up on the mountain, coming back down and trying to share it with somebody who hasn't is a challenge, and I'm looking forward to it.
Excellent.
Yeah. When this synodal process started, it was the middle of the pandemic. And in Japan, the the regulation was really strong, and all the church activities actually stopped. And it is still affecting. So past 2-3 years, we don't have the much opportunity to come together. The people are still afraid, especially the elderly people are afraid. So we don't have much opportunity to gather the people together to do this synodal process together. Well, maybe we can do it online, but all the senior people, they don't have much access to this digital world. So that is still the challenge. When I go back to Tokyo, I cannot present that this is what we decided, because of course not. So what I want to do is really to introduce this synodal way to the local churches in Japan, so that people really take that in to make it as a daily decision-making style of the parishes and dioceses and all things. Another thing is that the Asian countries are really quite clerical. Still the clerics decide. So I think we have to involve many more laity in the decision-making of the church. However, this is one thing. You see, the 1 month, how can we ask the laity who has a job, daily job, a family, to leave them and come to Rome for 1 month? It is impossible, actually. So if we're really serious about involving the laity in the decision-making of the Catholic Church, then we have to be serious about how to involve this laity, having their daily life and having their own families. And I think that is a bit lacking from the clerics, because we don't have the family. So thank you.
Perfetto, grazie.
Thank you. We have a colleague from the Philippines who has not answered any questions yet.
Archbishop Kikuchi, konnichiwa. Felipe from Manila, Philippines. In the continental document of FABC in number 170, you mentioned about the need to revisit structures of the church, but this is you mentioned this in the context of hospitality and inclusivity. Were you talking about the ecclesiology of the church? And if so, to what extent do these Western structures work in Asia, and to what extent do they not work? And how were you able to raise it in the small group discussions that you joined? Thank you.
And at the last part of the continental synodal document, we put that take off your shoes and enter the house. So that is our culture to welcome the people, but you have to take off your shoes and be free from daily life, be free from the daily worries, enter your house. That is the sign of the hospitality in the Catholic Church. And as you said, that it is true that our structure is really Western structure, of course, the Catholic Church. And I think we have to really introduce our hospitality spirit into the parish activities. So we want to be the church welcoming all the people. To first welcome all the people, then let's talk about your problem in the church. Take off your shoes, come in. Don't stand outside, but come in to my house and let's talk about your life. And that is what we want to do it and introduce or implement in the churches in Asia. Thank you.
Thanks, Archbishop. Un'ultima domanda, abbiamo Manuela Tulli.
Last question, Manuela Tulli from ANSA. The question is for whomever wishes to answer. We understood that this synod is going to postpone some decision to the Synod of 2024. Since we are almost at the end, because next week you're going to work on this synthesis document, are there some themes in whose connection you may bring home a minimum of general consensus, or are you going to go home with the same divisions that there are? And I'm thinking about women, about the LGBTQ+ plus pastoral ministry. I'm thinking about marriage of priests. You spoke about different opinions, but are there some topics in whose connection for the next 12 months it is hopeful that a result may be achieved? Thank you.
I think that the theme that everybody is united on and that the Holy Father has really moved us on is synodality itself. I think when we start discussing specifics of making a decision or having a conclusion for one or other topic, I don't think that's going to happen either in this phase or before 2024, and I'm not even sure if we'll have that at 2024. If we actually learn and grow in synodality, I think the Synod will have given its fruits. These questions aren't going away, they're part of the life of the Church, but the Synod isn't trying to make decisions on doctrinal or dogmatic issues. My experience in Europe was that when we started our continental phase, we, as the organizers, really went out on a limb in the sense that we were the only continent that didn't even have a draft of what was going to be in the final document of the continental phase for Europe. We came in with really tabula rasa and let everybody else bubble up the issues and experience that process, and it gave its fruits. I think as much as I've talked to the Office for the Secretariat, they are, the Secretariat for the Synod, they are going the same way. There is no preconceived notion of how this is supposed to end, which really requires a bit of faith of walking out into the unknown. I think that they're doing that for the year 2024 as well, as much as people would like to have some decisions made. Here it really is the process more important than the conclusions.
Voglio dire una cosa.
For me, even though there are many themes, this is not the most important thing. It's a methodology that we are learning to use and to implement. This is what we can bring back home to our communities, our families, and our church, how we can listen to the other and open our hearts and our ears and be ready to welcome what is being said, understanding it, praying for it, and sharing without bias, and allow people to freely express themselves. I think that listening is truly a key word in our lives, particularly in religious life. And then we have to pass through the families and the church. I think this is very important for me on a personal level. Thank you. It's important also for us laypersons to bring synodality in our families. I think we can end this briefing for today. I wish to thank all our guests. Thank you for being here with us. Thanks to all of you, and see you tomorrow when we're going to have another briefing with more opportunities for you to ask questions. Thank you.